Okay, so we're live here. I shouldn't say live because it's not going to be broadcasting live. I'm just so used to saying that. But I'm here today with a very special guest. You can see her on screen now, Amy Ford of Embrace Grace. She's got a wonderful organization. She's going to tell us all about it. Amy, first of all, welcome here. Welcome to the Free the Law podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too. When it was actually I got an email from someone in your organization reaching out who really liked one of my Substack posts, I guess, one of my articles, and thought that maybe we would be aligned and maybe that you would be someone who could contribute, whether through a guest contribution or come on to talk about your organization that some of my readers or our followers might be interested in. And I couldn't agree more. Because you are involved in the work of defending life, which is something that is very, very important to us here at We the Patriots USA. We launched an initiative last year to defend any healthcare workers, any doctors, nurses, CNAs, what have you, who have been persecuted, disciplined, or terminated for refusing to participate in abortion or any of the mechanisms of abortion. And this could be something even someone from the housekeeping staff that has to prepare the room and clean the instruments who doesn't want to do it, because that would be a violation of your sincerely held religious beliefs, in my view.
Yeah.
So we put out an initiative. We're still looking for plaintiffs. I'll just put that plug out there. We want to take on a case anywhere because we're a national organization, just like you guys are. But before we get into all of that, I want you, if you would, just tell me your story. Tell our listeners, our followers, your story, your personal story, how you got involved in this work.
Yeah, so I had my own unplanned pregnancy when I was 19. I grew up in church and I had an amazing family, but I didn't really have a relationship with God. And so I found out I was pregnant. I was so scared. When you're in that situation, you kind of go in crisis mode, a lot of people do, of just like, I couldn't think, I couldn't process. You think of the worst case scenarios. I thought my life was over, my dreams were over, that I was going to be homeless, that my parents were going to hate me forever, all of that. And you just kind of start spiraling. And the father of the baby felt the same way. He was thinking the same thing. And so, even though we grew up knowing abortion was wrong, in that moment, it just felt like it could be a quick fix. You could deal with the consequence of a broken heart later. And I just kind of was in robot mode, like trying not to feel anything, just trying to take one step at a time and just make this problem go away, this perceived problem. So we scheduled the abortion, we paid for the abortion. And as the nurses were describing what they were about to do or that what they wanted to do, that I actually ended up hyperventilating and passing out in the abortion room. So all of those feelings and emotions that I had stuffed down up to that point kind of erupted in that moment. And so I had a panic attack. And when I came to, one of the nurses was fanning me. She was trying to give me a drink of water. And she said, "You're too emotionally distraught to make this decision today. You can come back another day, but today you're not getting an abortion." And so I went back out in the waiting room where the father of the baby was. He could see my face was swollen from crying so much. And I looked at him and I said, "We're still pregnant." And so we kind of just decided in that moment, okay, if our life was over, if our dreams were over, we knew we had each other. We were high school sweethearts. We knew we wanted to get married someday, just not necessarily in the order that it ended up happening. And so we decided to get married when I was 16 weeks pregnant. And the pastor that had led my husband to the Lord years before, he said that he wouldn't marry us. We had asked him if he would marry us, and he said, "No, I will not marry you because you sinned. I will not bless this marriage." And we were just like, blown away. We're such horrible people. We can't even be married and be blessed, and just so much shame. And we ended up finding someone else to marry us. But on our wedding day, it just kind of felt like a scarlet letter experience, and it kind of took some of the celebration away on that. And then after that, you try to go to church, but it's sort of the elephant in the room, and people don't know whether to say congratulations or I'm sorry. And so then you don't say anything and you feel alone in a crowd of people. And so we just stopped going for a really long time. And we ended up having a son who, of course, we can't imagine our life without. He is so amazing. He is just passionate about life. He's a writer and a speaker and communicator. He owns his own marketing company. He got his degree at a theology degree at Oral Roberts University in Tulsa, and then went on to get his MBA. He's married. I'm a grandma now. I'm a honey. I live in Texas. That's kind of a common grandma name in Texas. It's very Texan. And I have a little grandbaby that a little girl, and I would have missed out on so much if I would have went through with that decision. And so I'm so thankful that I chose life, and even for that nurse. And I've had a lot of friends that have experienced the trauma of abortion, and when I tell my story, they're like, that was nothing like my experience. Like, they didn't care that I was hyperventilating or crying. We were just cattle moving them through, like no one cared. And then that is a very unique experience. And I wish that there was a way I could connect with her and tell her how much I appreciate her for just saying, no, go home. You can come back another day, but you're doing this.
God bless that nurse. That's what struck me when you're telling the story. I've never actually heard the nurse stopping it.
Yeah.
I've always heard if a baby's saved, sometimes it's just the individual, something comes over them, God, the Holy Spirit, leads them not do it, or it's somebody outside the abortion clinic, right? Who maybe has a conversation with them. I've never actually heard a story where the nurse said, you're too emotionally distraught. You can't do this right now. God bless her. And I really wish that you could get in touch with her.
I know. Of course, I don't remember her name. It was 27 years ago.
Yeah.
But one more part to it is that the pastor that wouldn't marry us when my son was 2, he actually called my husband out of the blue and he asked for forgiveness. He said he felt like it was his worst mistake in pastoring history that he had ever made. And my husband loves his pastor. He was like, yes, of course, we forgive you. And then I'm in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and he had moved on to Austin, Texas, and isn't a pastor in Austin. And he had asked me to come speak at his church when my son was 16. He was very open with his congregation about what he had done years before. He told them all, like, I had a Pharisee heart. I had a religious spirit. This is what I did to this couple. And this is what God taught in me through the process. I mean, he was just very open with it. And so I came and I spoke. He wanted me to talk about the ministry I run, Embrace Grace. And I did my thing. Well, afterwards, he asked me to come back on the platform after I was done speaking. He invited me to come back up, and he asked my son, Jess, who is 16, to come back on the platform. And he said in front of everyone, he was like, Amy, years ago, I asked your husband for forgiveness, but I never really asked you, will you forgive me? And I was like, yes, of course, we forgive you a long time ago. We love you so much, all that. Well, then he looked at my son, 16, in front of the whole church. And he said, will you forgive me for planting seeds of rejection in your heart before you were ever even born? And while you were in your mother's womb, I rejected you. Will you forgive me? And my son, 16, in front of the whole church says, I forgive you. And it was such a powerful moment in that room. Like, you could feel church wounds being lifted. The fact that the pastor would humble himself in that way, I think, was healing for a lot of people, and even healing for my son, because just 3 years before, we had sat him down to tell him, because he'd never calculated that his birthday and our anniversary is definitely not 9 months. And my first book was coming out, and I was starting to get some media and stuff. And so we needed to sit down and tell him. And we were so worried how he was going to take it and how he was going to comprehend. He was 8th grade boy, and I had all my friends praying because I was so worried that he would take it as rejection. Or, we said, you weren't planned by us, but you were planned by God, and God knew that we needed you, and we can't imagine our life without you. And you have been the best gift to our family. We're so thankful, and then we ask him how he feels, and he kind of does the typical 8th grade response. I don't know. But over time, he kind of did start processing. And one day at the church, they had asked a few of the kids to speak for 5 minutes on how they're an overcomer. And he came in my room and he's like, I think I know what I'm going to talk about. He said, I was an overcomer before I was ever even born. And Satan had a plan to take me out, but I'm here and I want to use my story and I want to help people. And so ever since then, he just has really been passionate about life. And so he helps a lot of pregnancy centers with their marketing, a lot of pro-life organizations developing marketing strategies. It's called Ford Creative. creative. So super proud of him that he's even integrated it into his life work, and to see the impact that he's making is pretty awesome.
Yeah, he's great. Jess is the one who reached out to me initially that I mentioned, who saw my article, read my article, and yeah, just God bless him for speaking out like that. I think it's so powerful when the babies themselves, obviously not babies anymore, but the
Right.
babies themselves who were saved come back and speak out, because that's hard, even for the most staunch pro-abortion, pro-death, I call it, person, when they're confronted with that actual child who is now a very valuable member of society, who is doing great things as your son is and
Mhm.
is contributing, to look them in the face and say that you shouldn't have been here,
Right.
you don't deserve to be here. I've been seeing some powerful videos recently about children of rape, of rape victims coming forward and say, well, wait, do you think I don't deserve to be? And there was one gentleman, you probably know who I'm talking about, who said that he told his personal story where somebody actually told him that he didn't deserve to be here, that he was an abomination.
Well,
He was an abomination because he was conceived in rape. And you know what my response to that was? Because someone in the comments online when I was watching the video was talking about, well, I was also conceived. I was not. It took me a long time to come to terms with the fact that I was not conceived in love. And I say, well, you know what? A lot of people aren't conceived in love. A lot of people are conceived in lust.
yeah, true.
Okay. And anything outside of the marital union is not perfect love, as you know. And you told
Right.
your own story.
Hmm.
You're not condoning extramarital sex.
Right.
But you're telling your story truthfully. That
Hmm.
child, regardless of how it was conceived, now obviously extramarital sex is not the same, consensual sex is
Yeah.
not the same as rape. I'm not trying to make that analogy, but in God's eyes, the only perfect union of love is between a man and a woman within a lawful, godly marriage.
Hmm.
Okay. But that does not mean the children who are produced in other ways are not perfect gifts from God,
Right.
made in the image of our Creator.
Right.
That's what we have to remember. So thank you so much for telling this
Yeah.
story, because people need to hear these stories over and over and over again. And we hear the other side too, right? From women who have had abortions and how much they regret that. I've interviewed and had as a guest at our conference Abby Johnson, who
Mhm.
tells her personal story of loss of the abortion she had before she had her 8 children or whatever it is, I think.
Right.
And it's so hard to hear her have to tell that and what she has to live with.
Mhm.
But I'm just so grateful to God and to you that you made the decision to bring that baby forth into this world.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, tell us how then, you told us the backstory of how obviously why this is a passion of yours to defend life. How did that turn into Embrace Grace, and what is Embrace Grace?
Well, it started as a small group at my church. My son was 10 and we're now going to church. We found a church that we liked, and I even have another kid. I'm married, baby dad, we're still married 27 years. We have 4 kids total, but at this time I think we had 2 or maybe 3. And life is going on. It's not like I think back on that time often of an unplanned pregnancy, but I was at a conference, a women's conference at my church, and I just really felt like God was asking me to start a small group at my church for women with unexpected pregnancies. And I'd never led anything in my life. I'm not the teacher type at all, but I really felt like I was supposed to. And I got it approved by the church to start it, and then I'm like, I thought Embrace Grace was a great name for my group, just a group. I never in a million years thought nonprofit. And then I was looking for single and pregnant curriculum. Well, there was no such thing as single and pregnant curriculum. This is in 2012 or 2008. But one day I found a book whilst I was researching called Embrace Grace, which was kind of crazy. It was like, oh, that's the name. That's what I want to call this group. It was by Liz Curtis Higgs, who's a very well-known author. It wasn't about being pregnant, but it was so simple and easy to understand. It was about how much God loves them. It's about our identity and our value. It's about letting go of past hurts and wounds. It's about forgiveness, sin, repentance, all of that. So I'm like, we can just use that. Well, we did that. 3 girls came. One wore a coat in August in Texas because she was terrified of stepping foot into a church and anyone seeing that she was pregnant. They wouldn't make eye contact. Their shoulders sagged. They just had this hopelessness about them. One was still abortion minded. She was 19 and her mom really didn't want her to have an abortion. She was the lead singer of a band and she was just like, this is not the look, that I did not plan on this happening. And they just had this hopelessness. And so it was amazing. It's 12 weeks, over 12 weeks, like how by the end of it, they were empowered as women to be the moms that God created them to be. They had a sparkle in their eye. They had hope. They still didn't have everything figured out, but it's like their perspective changed on what of going forward. And so it was awesome to see the transformation that happened. So then me and the leaders were like, let's do it again. So we did it again. Three more girls came, then 8, then 14, then 21. And it started growing. And then within 4 years, we had gotten up to 10 churches without us even trying. It was just organic. Like someone would say, I'm a pastor at this church in Oklahoma and my niece in Texas went through a program. Her life was totally changed. How can I implement this in my church? And we kind of had started writing our own curriculum, but still just thinking our own church. And so by those 4 years later, when we got to 10 churches, we were like, God is doing something bigger and nothing like this exists. And maybe we're called to help people and help the church be the church. And so we started the nonprofit in 2012. It wasn't until about 2014 that we like really hit the ground running and we had enough funding to be in an office and a few of us, 3 people on staff. And that's when we really hit the ground running. But what's so crazy about that is that 2 years after the nonprofit was when I figured out, oh, we're a pro-life organization. I wasn't super into politics and I didn't think about this issue. I hadn't researched anything. My church never talked about pro-life stuff ever. And so it wasn't until I got invited to teach. I had my first book come out. I got invited to do a panel at a pregnancy center training conference. And I didn't even know what a pregnancy center was. I had no idea. No one had ever told me in all my years of going to church, no one had ever told me what a pregnancy center was. And so I said yes. They're like, we'll give you a free booth if you will, do this panel. I didn't know it was going to be in Dallas that year. I didn't really know what I was going to, but I said sure. And when I got there and saw all of the vendors, which the vendors, like the exhibitors, they were all like boots on the ground, pro-life organizations serving women and young fathers that are impacted by unexpected pregnancies, like maternity homes. It was grants for single moms, like so much. And then all the people, the attendees were pregnancy center workers from all over the nation. It was like several thousand people. And I was blown away. I was like, how have I gone to church my whole life and no one ever told me that this existed, that there's this movement that existed. If someone would have said, I work at a pro-life organization, I would have assumed that meant picketing. And the angry picketers, the ones that are kind of more angry. That's the only thing, because that's the only thing that the media showed. They'd always show the one person that's not really doing it super well. I know there's amazing people that stand outside and pray and lovingly talk to the moms, but it's like, it goes to that was my context of like, what is a pro-life organization? And I just was I couldn't believe it. And then thinking back about my own story, I was like, how, the abortion rate is the same inside the church as it is outside. And I went straight to the abortion clinic. I didn't know. And even back then, 27 years ago, there's more pregnancy centers than abortion clinics. Why did my church never tell me about that? How many other women are even sitting in our pews that don't know about free resources like pregnancy centers that give you free sonograms, they empower them and get them connected and help them see up higher before they make those crisis decisions like I almost made in that crisis moment. Even though I ended up choosing life at the last minute, my story could have looked a lot different. And if I had known, about a pregnancy center. And so that's when we were like, oh, okay, so we're a pro-life organization. We fit here, because the pregnancy centers were like, we want to send our clients to churches. And this is a great bridge to get them in the church. And so they kind of even market for us in their communities all around the nation because they want churches to have these support groups so that they can refer their clients. So Embrace Grace, now we provide the churches all the curriculum and the tools to implement Embrace Grace groups. And it's for the moms that are pregnant. They get a baby shower as part of the experience. They get loved on. They're discipled. They meet other women going through similar situations. They find community within the church. And we don't want it just to be a 12-week class where, they check that off their list. We hope by the end that they're integrated into the church, that they're going on the weekends. And one of my staff members here, she leads a group at her church. And just now, right before I walked in here, she was telling me it's her first group to ever lead. And she has 4 moms. And she said they've all been sitting with her on Sunday morning at the services, and that people are coming up to them and they know what she's doing, and they're just loving on them, trying to get the moms like more comfortable with being there. But because, there's the church building, but there's also the church as in me and you. And God put strengths and gifts inside of us, not just so we have a better job or whatever, like it's to do the good works that he's called us to do. And so if all of us as the church and as the people, we're tapping into that, whether someone is great with HR and could help a single mom work on a resume and get a better job and practice interviewing, or a guy that is super great at bookkeeping or accounting and he wants to help a young father know about interest rates and credit scores and things like that, because maybe that guy never had a dad, that taught him. Like, we all have something to give. And I really think that we can make this issue a non-issue. We can make abortion unthinkable. Like, politics are important. We've seen, since Roe v. Wade was overturned in 2022, the abortion rates have actually gone up. And a lot of that has to do with the pill and mifepristone and all of that. But, it's going to take love, that's what's really going to change hearts and minds. And again, I know politics are important, but if we as a church, there's over 300,000 churches in America. If we all could jump in some way and say, our doors and our hearts are open to you, and here's the avenue to get plugged into our church, I really think that would make a huge impact on abortion numbers. So if the church could become known more for what they're for than what they're against, it's huge. And, when I invite moms to church right now, it's like, they're kind of like, if they're pregnant, they're like, wait, what? You want me to go to a church, or what are y'all going to do? Like, this, is there a trick here? Or they'll say, one mom said one time, I need to stop smoking. Can you give me one more week? Like, they think they have to be perfect before walking into the doors of the church. So they think of the church as behavior modification and not as a heart transformation. And we've done that. That's what we put out there as a church. They think that for a reason. So how can we make the church a place that if they find out they're pregnant, they can run to, and they can be resourced to know about pregnancy centers, and they feel comfortable in that? Because right now it's the abortion rate is the same inside the church as it is outside. They're sitting in our pews, and we don't know if they're either going to have abortions and coming right back, or maybe they leave because they're too scared to tell the church about the situation that they're in. And so that's what we want to change.
That's great. And so just to clarify for our listeners, when you say the church, you're non-denominational, right? You mean Christian, but I noticed, like, for instance, I'm Catholic, and I looked on your website, and you have Catholic churches. You're in Catholic churches as well, which is great, because I, at my last church, was a member of the pro-life committee. And, we had our own ministry, and we partnered with pregnancy centers. But I would have loved to have known about Embrace Grace to bring, because you're an organization that already has tools in place,
right,
that can sort of pop into the local parish, the local church, and pop up in each church is kind of like I'm kind of imagining these ministries in all of these different churches. So for people listening out there that might be of a different denomination than you personally are, you haven't even told me your denomination, you don't have to, but let's say there is someone who's Catholic, for instance, they want to attend one nearby, or they want to start one at their own parish. How does somebody who might want to start a ministry, because I know obviously you're serving the pregnant women, but what if I'm in a church and I want to start an Embrace Grace ministry? How do I go about that?
Yeah, we would just need an approval from your pastor or priest. People will call us and be like, "Hey, I live in Connecticut and I want to start a group." Okay, what church do you go to? Oh, I don't really go to a church. I'm just going to do it out of my house. And we don't know. They could be crazy, whatever. So, we need a pastoral oversight, and there's an agreement form that a pastor has to sign, and it's very simple. It's like, I'll never tell a girl to get an abortion. I'll never judge or shame her publicly or privately. I'll be the spiritual covering and authority of this group. I approve this leader to lead that's in my church, a member of my church, and I approve that it's listed on our embracegrace.com group directory. So if a mom puts in her zip code, that church will pop up and they can find that church. And so it's very simple. And once we have that, you can go. We have a lot of Catholic churches that have groups. In fact, it fits really well with a lot of Catholic churches have Walking with Moms in Need, and that is something that's but they don't necessarily have a curriculum that they use. It's more of like, here's how you walk with a mom in need, but this will help you have a guided. So the Catholic churches that are doing it, they're partnering it under Walking with Moms in Need, and it's been a great partnership in the Catholic Church. But we are non-denominationally based. And so we have Baptists and AG and Catholic and all of that, and it fits well with all of them.
Well, I mean, honestly, anyone that defends life should want this, right? I mean, because that's the mission. The mission is to save these babies first and foremost, and then provide support for the moms and their families as they're going through this very difficult time. Because obviously, anyone considering an abortion, it's an unplanned pregnancy. It's something they didn't expect, perhaps didn't want or didn't think they wanted until they realize how valuable a gift it is. I mean, there's so many people that can't have children, right?
Yeah.
And when you put it in perspective and say, God's chosen you.
Yeah.
God's chosen you to be the mom to this child who is the only child that like this that will ever exist. There will never be another one of this person. This is the only person in history that this will be, and how important that life is. And I don't think often we think in terms, because it's, sex and even, raising children is so commercialized in our society. It's just like something you do. All right. Yeah. You're going to have the 2.5 kids. You're going to live the American dream. You're going to do this. It's just something you check off the box. I got married. I had a family. But you don't realize not you, but some people don't realize what a truly momentous occasion it is when you conceive life within you.
Yeah.
When a man and a woman conceive life
miracle
through God, that is a miracle. Mm-hmm. And it is so beautiful. And it's the most wonderful thing that we can do, or that women can do with their bodies, is to bring forth that life and to grow a life within them. And it's something honestly, that I don't usually hear men saying they're envious of it, but in some ways you should be. Not envy, you know what I mean? But you should really admire it and say, wow, that's a privilege that she gets to do that. She gets to grow a human life. And that's how I look at it. I have 2 children. That's how I looked at it with my children, is that it was a miracle.
Yeah,
it is. It's an absolute honor. And, before we conclude, because I said I want to keep this to around a half an hour, I do want to just talk about briefly what we're doing and how we can maybe support you or people the pregnancy centers that you work with legally. So what we're trying to do, and this isn't just for you, Amy, but for anyone else listening, if you know of any doctors or any healthcare professionals or any pregnancy centers that are being persecuted for the work that they're doing, or for refusing, in the case of doctors and healthcare professionals, to participate in abortions, please do reach out to us. Please do consider partnering with us, Amy, and any other pregnancy centers that you might know who might need legal representation. Because what our mission here is to provide free legal representation, pro bono legal representation for whether it be pregnancy centers, whether it be individuals, doctors, healthcare professionals. If there was a church that was being persecuted for its work against abortion, its pro-life work, we provide free legal representation for anyone in need of it, if it aligns with our mission, which obviously defending life and defending those who defend life and protect life does align with our mission. We are not exclusively a pro-life organization. We have many pillars. We defend constitutional rights and human rights. But as I said to you before we came on the air, it's my belief that there's no greater human right than the right to life itself. And that's why we decided a long time ago, Dawn, my business partner, and she and I decided a long time ago that we need to be in the business of defending life and protecting life.
Yeah, I was at a wedding last weekend in Minnesota. My assistant got married, and my assistant's great uncle came up to me, and he had heard about what I do for a ministry, and he said he was an OB-GYN years ago. He's retired now. He's probably 80 or so, and he got kind of teary-eyed. He said, before Roe v. Wade was a thing, there was someone that had come in that had a really a heart issue and a clotting issue, and that they were told, don't ever get pregnant, don't ever get pregnant, don't ever get pregnant. And she got pregnant. And so him and the board had to come together and decide what to do. And they advised her that she should not carry the baby to term. And he got chosen to be the one to do the abortion. And he literally had tears in his eyes. I mean, this was like 60 years ago, 50 years ago. He had tears in his eyes, and he said, I think all the time about that, of like, well, what could have happened if maybe she could have carried to term, and why did we intervene? He's like, it's something that has weighed on me my whole life.
Never leaves you.
I didn't want to be a part of that. And he's like, it was kind of before, so much even politically talks about it. It was a long time ago, but it affects him to this day. And so that's great work that you're doing, that is going to make a real impact. So I'm thankful for it, for sure.
Well, thank you. And thank you so much for everything that you're doing, starting this ministry. It looks amazing. I've just started delving into your website, looking at all. You have a great location, Ministry Finder. Whoever designed your website did a great job.
Yes.
I want to, congratulate them, and maybe you can refer them to us at some point.
It's called Make. That's who made it.
Make. Okay. Well, I'll have to look into that. They did a great job. It's a great website.
And they've been the owner of it has been on our, both partners are pro-life. They've been on our board. They donate, and so they would be behind what you're doing, like before it. So they're great.
Well, that's great. I'm going to reach out, and I'm going to put your website on screen right now. It's embracegrace.com, correct?
Yes.
All right.
And also, one more thing I forgot to mention this. We are in all 50 states, and we're in over 1,200 churches. So if you know someone that's pregnant, or if you want to lead a group, you can check to see what's around you. But we always need more. Our goal is 23,400 churches. That's what we're working toward. So check it out.
Wow. 23,400?
That's how many we need to accomplish our vision. Our vision is for every woman with an unplanned pregnancy to have a church to turn to in her local area for practical, spiritual, and emotional support. Every woman. So that is from the tiniest town to a super populated, we need enough churches, say Dallas, you can't just have one. Like, you would need a lot to serve the population.
Right.
So we figured it out. It's 23,400 churches strategically placed around the United States in order to make that God-sized dream come to life, that every girl would have a church to turn to. So that's what we are working toward. We're at 1,200. We got a long way to go, but we believe we can get there.
Oh, absolutely. As you continue to grow and get the message out and keep doing things like this, I found that I'm sure you do a lot of interviews and speaking engagements, but that's the best way to get the word out, because you could be in a room full of, 100 people, and right there you could get 5 new people that want to create ministries in their church. Just from one speaking engagement for 20 minutes on stage, you get 5 new ones right there. So, and this podcast could result in a couple of new ones.
We pray.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Amy. It was a pleasure meeting you and speaking with you. And please keep in touch. And again, if there's anything that we can do to help here at We the Patriots USA, we would love to support you in your efforts to defend life, save babies, and help these women.
Yes. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
All right. God bless.